Hello, Internet, and welcome to my travel vlog. So, yeah, I promised to talk a bit about Japan, so I don't want to recount everything on my trip because it was 3 weeks. And, yeah. But I mean, I saw temples, I saw shrines, I saw arcades, shopping districts, manga stores. I saw a whole heck of a lot, did a lot of the touristy stuff. I mean, spent most of my time more down south near Osaka and in that area, but I also spent a few days in Tokyo, and I didn't end up going more north, and that's fine. We spent a day in Hiroshima. I hated that. That was a white guilt museum, and I felt it was kind of tone deaf the way that they were talking about what led up to and what transpired. And there was certain things that they did to make things seem more tragic from one end than they actually were, which was annoying. Just as someone who knows the history, I guess, better than they were presenting it, it was odd to see. Not to say that I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, don't drop nuclear bombs, it's bad, obviously, but there's a lot of stuff surrounding what they were talking about that made it seem bad. Also, what really hit me the most odd about that is, there's all this stuff about, like, the one building left standing in the wake of the atomic bomb within so much distance, obviously, and it was there, and you see it, but it was under repair when we were there, which just okay. So they're keeping this rubble standing to keep the memory alive, I guess. That was an odd part, but from there, next to it, we went to Miyajima, which was probably the most tranquil part where we went to, and there are just deer that will walk up to you, and some like stole food out of a guy's pocket and stuff, and it was really neat. It was just this little community, and you could watch the tide come in, and there was the floating torii, and it was just really beautiful. It was the one part that really felt like a vacation because we had a chance to slow down, you know. Beyond that, we traveled with a bunch of people, so it was me and my girlfriend, and we traveled with a few other people that stayed in the house with us most of the time. That was interesting. We just kind of pick a place. And what you do in Japan is you just kind of take a train to where you're going. So that's what we ended up doing a lot, and so we spent a lot more time on trains than I would have liked. It got pretty old pretty fast. And, when you're traveling, being stuck on the train forever is just eating time. It's like, I want to go do the thing. I don't want to spend forever traveling to the thing. Yada yada. But, in doing so, I kind of realized here, if we had more trains and transportation, that would be great. Because if I knew where I was going and didn't have to worry about where I was getting off and it was just kind of routine, it would be great. It would open up a lot of reading time, basically. And you did see that. And I heard stories from back when where people would read manga a lot, manga, comics, whatever, leave it on the train, and then someone else would pick it up because it was so cheap, and they were really just doing to pass the time. Once they read it, they read it. And I definitely did see people reading some, but mostly what you see is people on cell phones, predictably. But peeking over people's shoulders, some people were working, some people are just texting friends. Some people were playing games, and some relatively interesting games for mobile. That's they haven't explored much either way. And there were a lot of people that were reading comics on their phones. So you didn't quite get to see it out in the same way, but it was there. So that was cool to see, and it was cool to just kind of get that experience of something that was so different, but so, to me, that felt more like big city and less like Japan. And I know it's more prevalent throughout Japan because it's a smaller country and it just works better. And I mean, for that to work in America, you'd be traveling vast distances, and it just doesn't line up as well with the train because they'd have to put down so much track to go from stop to stop, and it wouldn't have the same effect because you wouldn't have the same amount of people rating. I don't know, but it's just interesting. But also realizing that very kind of same things happen in LA, New York City for other people. So made me feel like I live in the boonies, even though I don't in some ways. The other super cool thing was kind of taking in how religion was there. Most of what we saw was Shinto, but we did see some Buddhist stuff as well. That was more of the Tokyo era, so obviously it's a bit regional. But a lot of the Shinto shrines, they're just shrines. So, like, you'll see one in the middle of the neighborhood or just kind of as you're walking by somewhere. And mostly, I mean, what people do is they'll just kind of walk into this nice, tranquil place. There's, like, grass, and there's this little temple, and usually a bell and a well. You just kind of clap, throw in your 5 cents, clap twice, and bow. Maybe there's a bell involved, maybe there isn't. And, yeah, it was just something to take in, like, this is something people believe and they read about kind of in their own time, but for most of it, and probably the day-to-day, the practice of religion is there, it's present, but it's so quick. It's so kind of commercialized, because you're throwing in some money. I mean, not that different from many here in a lot of ways, I guess, but also, it's just, you take your 5, your 10 minutes, and you move on. It's not this big sit down. It's not this huge communal thing. But in some ways it is more communal, because it's just something you do in the community, and you'll see people doing it. But it's not like a gathering as much. They do have events and whatnot. We didn't go and do any of that. It was just seeing more of the day-to-day stuff. And that was kind of interesting to me that, I don't know, that connected with me on a different level, because it's more likely people make it what they want to make it, and there's not going to be as much crazy infighting over an interpretation of something, because the amount that people would express it on that level is less. So that was just something to take in, realize that the religion was there to serve what it needed to serve, and not to be this whole crazy thing, because I've never been able to view religion as its own component in someone's life, because in America, no, it's not. It's not at all. Either you're kind of religious and you keep that shit to yourself because your sane, cool friends are going to judge the shit out of you or make fun of you or whatever, or you're in the other group and everyone's psycho-religious, and if you don't fall in line with a number of other things surrounding the dogma, not the religion itself, it's going to go the other way as well. And it's just this, it's a whole thing that like takes over your life in one way or another, whether you reject it or fall in with a religion, and how and what group of even a certain religion you fall in with is going to completely dictate how that affects how you deal with it. So, yeah, I don't know. And that's a whole nother rant right there that I probably shouldn't get into. And then one thing I was super excited for, more on the nerdy side, was arcades. I really wanted to check out the arcades. I've heard stuff for years. By the time I got there, we went to a few that were Taito Towers, and we went to Sega, and we went to a couple others. But for the most part, they felt the same. At the bottom, at the floor you walk in on, it was either like a pachinko parlor or a UFO machine catcher. And a UFO machine catcher is like a claw machine, but different, where you move a joystick or press some buttons and you're trying to claw and win a prize. And my girlfriend's much better at that stuff, and she played a lot of that and won us some stuff. And won too much, we had to give some of it away, but she just liked playing it, so interesting. I was more wanting to play some fighting games and a few shmups and whatnot, but I thought I was going to see more crazy games I hadn't seen before or hadn't seen forever or something like that. And most of the arcades I walked into, there were just these multi-cades that had a list of fighting games and shmups on them because you have the same controller. And what was weird was I owned most of those games, so it wasn't very exciting. It just felt like I could just play this at home and I wouldn't have to do $1 a play or whatever. and that was annoying. But there was a few cool games. There was this gunslinger game where you pick up and there was two peripherals, so two guns, and you could like connect them in different ways, which would affect how your characters did stuff. But you needed a card to hook up and play with people, and it was this whole deal. And that was something that blew me away. A lot of the arcades, you needed an ID card to log in, so you had an account, and you had to pay for the card. It was this whole deal. And that was annoying because I didn't want to pay for that, but we kind of gained one through some pity of an arcade person for at least one. But there's like 3 different cards. If you wanted to play a different card, you had to log in. And a lot of the games, and usually they're on different floors because the fighting stuff was like on one floor, and so like this gun game was on another floor. There'd be a floor for like rhythm games. And so that would be like your DDRs, but a lot of them were like these touchpad ones, but like not as intricate or as involved as Elite Beat Agents, so that was weird to me. And all these different peripherals for rhythm games. There were a few others. Dissidia, if you like Final Fantasy, is a Final Fantasy kind of fighter game. That's cool. I swear they're supposed to be porting that because it's better than the PSP versions because they figured out how to make that weird game work. But in order to get any further than that, you needed a card, which was annoying. And then there was Pokken lying around, and that was one of the few games that was newer that we could actually just put in some coins and play. And it was a lot cooler to play that at the arcade than if you have a home setup because 2 people had 2 monitors, whereas if you're at home you have to have the TV and someone plays on the gamepad, and the gamepad screen is shite. So that was cool. And one of my friends that we know there drive me to this like backwater arcade where you kind of had to know, and it was the arcade that I wanted to see. Like there's this I think it was called Space Harrier game where you walk in, there's a joystick in this little cockpit, and you figure you'll just move the joystick around. But as you're moving around, the entire frickin' thing moves, and you have to deal with that. The game's super hard and old school, and it's 3D, so like 2D objects are flying at you, and you're trying to judge perception. Yeah, lasted 30 seconds, but like it was a cool experience. They had some cool pinball machines. They had all these crazy things, and then they had this one game I'd wanted to try forever, a Dardia Burst, which was a shmup arcade, but you'll walk in, and it had this whole overhang and whatnot, and there were 2 screens, so you're trying to deal with this horizontal game going, and there's 2 screens, and the speakers were so loud that every time something exploded, the entire thing would shake, and it was just sensory overload, and it was crazy, and it was tons of fun. And that was cool. And we went upstairs, and there was this awesome fighting arcade where they had all these different games and all this stuff. And I saw Virtual Fighter, which is the only place I'd seen it. And there's these 2 people playing, and the way they were playing is it looked really smooth and intricate. I was watching them play, I'm like, wow, I've never seen Virtual Fighter look like a real video game before. It always looks super like sticky and weird. And I was watching a little more, and I realized, oh, these are probably 2 of the best players in the world just fighting each other right now in this Japanese arcade, which makes sense. And I looked around and saw BlazBlue and saw someone, you know, with a jab, and someone just came in and then 50%ed with a combo, and I was like, oh, one of the best players in the world here too, probably, whatever. Okay, so I'm in one of those arcades, and I probably shouldn't even drop in a coin because I'm just going to get my ass beat. So that was a cool thing. But it was cool to see, and that was one thing that I really wanted to check out while I was there. The other crazy thing for me was just the manga there and how it was. There's a lot of different things, like, and on a smaller sense, like, there's a lot of warning signs, like stop would be not just a stop sign, but a lot of them would be like, if there were kids, it'd be like stop, and then they'd have this like little cartoon policeman or whatnot, and then they had of watch out for perverts on the train. They had this whole manga thing of the pervert being like this dark soul kind of looking thing, and you just had to like recognize that comics were part of the culture. They used visual cues and kind of the language of comics and the language of just, art instead of just words everywhere to kind of convey some things, which was cool because it was easier for me to understand. And I didn't even have to read a word. And it was just interesting to see that. That was really cool. But beyond that, like, every few blocks you'd see a manga shop in more populated areas. And when I say manga shop, I mean, when we have a comic shop here, it's, stuck in a mall, whatever, and they have comics lined wherever. These manga shops are set up, they're generally cleaner, and it's just rows and rows of stuff, and a lot of them have like $1, $2, $3 racks where you just go buy stuff, and a lot of them had collections of classics. So I'd see stuff like, Dragon Ball Z, Akira, Naruto, Love Hina, things you'd expect to see. And then you'd look further and you'd see a lot of new stuff, and looking through just by the covers or just a little bit, some word hints here or there, the diversity of what they were showing was so crazy because they had, action comics that and kind of superhero-y stuff. Done a little different than how we have it with Marvel and DC, but there. But they'd also have like romance comics, or they'd have detective stories, or they'd have, stuff designed for kids, or they'd have a lot of more sexual stuff, or or they had all these crazy things, and it's more like, are you interested in a thing? There's a comic for that, and you could just check it out, and that was really cool. What was as common as more of like a comic store here were fan comic things I would see. So there was this one shop, Mandarake, where you could go and you'd find mostly just fan-drawn porn of characters. So if you're really into, I don't know, what I looked up, Batman, you could go find porn of, like, Batman or Superman or whatever, and it was just all this fan-drawn stuff, and you could go buy that, and those shops were a little harder to find, but they were out there. And so it was just, the stuff was everywhere. But I mean, even when you're at a train station, some of the bigger train stations would just have a comic shop so people could pick up a comic and read it on the train. Talked about that a bit before. That used to be a bigger thing, but it's still present. It's still there. And I've heard that manga isn't as big as it used to be in Japan. But I mean, when we were in Tokyo proper, we'd see ads for stuff like anime lying around, or we'd see an ad for a manga coming out here or there. It was just really cool to see, like, it is part of the culture. It is not, I mean, a lot of the stuff around it maybe is subculture, but it's there, it's present, and you couldn't not be aware of it, I don't think. It's it was just really cool to see. It was really cool to see, like, all the different creators and all the different ideas. Even if I couldn't read one word, you could just kind of get a sense of that. And it's just a medium there. It's just a way to tell a story, and it's a very digestible one, so a lot of people read it. And I mean, you can tell there's some people that are totally into that, and there's some people who maybe enjoy their few, but it's more like, there's the guy who's the movie buff and he's really into movies, and that's cool. Then there's, people who watch whatever movies grab their attention. And it's just more like that, and it's just so crazy to see. But what's really crazy to see is, like, there are all these different publishers, and nobody really cared as much about the publisher. We found one store that was organized somewhat more by publishers, but they had a row for this, a row for that, a row for this, a row for that. And it wasn't as defined, which was really cool. So you didn't just have the big two, you had all this crazy stuff. And it just kind of made me realize, like, wow, there's so much that could have been going on with comics if it wasn't so corporate over here, and if people were willing to try new things. But also, more importantly, was the price barrier. I mean, like I said, when I say a comic, you'd be picking up a manga, and there should be something in reach. No, I guess not. But you know, the manga volumes you see that are kind of like trades but smaller, whatever. You can get those for a handful of dollars, and here they sell them for like 10, and that's kind of hilarious because you can go pick them up for like even the more popular ones for like 3 or 5 when they initially come out, and a lot of them are cheaper. And so it's just like it's so cheap. Like if you're interested in it, you just pick it up. It wouldn't be a big deal. It costs as much or less than like a drink. It's just not a thing. Whereas issues here, I mean, yeah, issues are still relatively cheap. It's a few bucks, which is equivalent to a drink. But I mean, issues 20 page, it's this floppy, yeah. And I can really see why people wouldn't get into it as much, and it's just not around as much, and yada yada. It's just one of those things why I saw like where comics could be in a lot of what I've been wanting to see here. And it was just that's how it's been in Japan for as long as I've lived. So tough pill to swallow in some ways, but really cool to see as well. So we're materialistic here, right? So I figured I'd talk about the stuff I actually bought. And I'm not really into this sort of stuff normally, but I did end up getting a few statues, so yay, and it's a little pervy, so whatever. Yeah, so I got this Inosuka figurine because 3.0. I still haven't seen 3.0 yet though, but same design as her from the rest of the rebuilds. Asuka, Ava, I love Ava. I should talk about it. I wanted to do a video project with Ava, but it would be work, real like academic work, and I don't want to just do that for a video that's going to get 10 views. So I don't know, but anyways, yeah. The Ava is still huge in Japan, and it's kind of funny what series were popular over there now, and what I'd see and what I didn't. Like I saw a lot of Ava. I didn't see anything about Gurren Lagann while I was there, basically. So that was crazy. You just see various things. I also got a Rei statue because I needed, one for the other, and Lance of Logis one was cool. It was funny. A lot of these figures can go for stupid amounts of money. I picked out 2 that were actually relatively cheap, but were my favorite ones that I saw. It's nice to be on the cheaper end of preference for once. So, they were only like $12 or $20, and that was cool. One that we got from UFO Machine, but I just thought it looked cool, and I used to be more into this, was this Yugi one. I mean, I don't know why. That's just a cool freaking statue. But this one was stupid. This was at a UFO place, but it wasn't a UFO game. It took the buttons, but it was just a metal pole, and there was kind of this round area, and you need to hit it to win. Most of the games like this are put up so the circle you need to hit is almost exactly the size of the circle you're putting down, so it's really hard to line up exactly with by pushing buttons indirectly. But this one was just kind of like a small rod, like this big thing is just like punk, like it was just like win. So we got that one. That was cool. Okay, super excited about this. This is the Metal Gear Revengeance stupid limited edition box that was only released in Japan. It was one of my favorite games. Didn't necessarily want to get this. I just wanted to get the soundtrack to the game. And this game comes with a soundtrack, an art book, and some weird little toy thing. And, the game, whatever. And it was just nifty to see, but I really just wanted the soundtrack. And this was $18, and the soundtrack was upstairs for $23. And I was like, okay. And then I listened to the soundtrack in this one, and it didn't have any of the vocal tracks, which were the ones I really wanted. And I think the soundtrack upstairs would have had it, but oh well, I'm here, I have this, so yay. But this was nifty. Yeah. I also got a Japanese copy of one of my favorite games, The Bouncer. That was $2. And, picked up some soundtracks on the cheap. Got the soundtracks to an anime called Beck, not the band, but the anime. Yeah. Then I found some cool stuff. So I found some Marvel and DC, like American comics over there. They were all stupid expensive. I kind of wanted to buy a couple to kind of have a Japanese print of a couple of my favorites, but it was more than it would have been worth. But I did find some stuff. So Spawn and the whole image explosion was huge over there, and so you got these collections of like 3 issues at once, and they were all colored and translated and whatnot. But they had these crazy covers that are pretty unique, and they did a whole different crazy printing for the image stuff in Japan, which was cool to see. I picked up a Japanese adaptation of the Batman movie. That will be something to look through. I don't know. Let's see here. Oh yeah, I got an art book for Ava because it was super cheap, and yeah, Ava was the thing. Here we go. Here's some of what I was talking about before. So here's some Street Fighter Gayo porn. Yeah, that's for someone. Oh, friend got me this. I don't even know what it is yet. I should check it out soon. Let's see here. Oh yeah, I found some Gayu Gurren Lagann porn for someone. Here was one. Old guy, right? But it's Batman. It's a rethought out end scene from The Dark Knight Returns. Wonder where that's going. There's the more obvious stuff like, you know, Superman with the boner. Teen Titans, because, you know, when you're talking fan porn, Teen Titans comes up pretty regularly. Then, yeah, the first of Superman the Boner. So, in one of the shops, though, I was looking at this, because this is something I've heard about, seen, I kind of wanted, but I was just looking at it, and it's like, I wonder if it's in Japanese or English, because it would have shocked me if they took this thing and translated it to Japanese for whatever reason. And Crystal said, well, I'll ask. And so she took it up to the counter. She said, you know, is this in English or Japanese? Whatever. And asked them. And then they opened it up. They said, oh, it's in English. It's not going to be cash or credit. And it's like, well, we didn't know that we wanted to buy it, and then you opened it up, and now we have to buy it. Like, it was just, we got hoodwinked, but we did buy it, so I'm a proud owner of this Dead Man collection, which should be fun to read. Just haven't gotten around to it yet. Yeah. Oh, that's going to be something I should talk about. I don't even know if I want to do video on all this. I read through all of Gotham Central and then all of Joker's Last Laugh, the DC event. Not the last laugh, but there was an event called Joker's Last Laugh that they've more or less swept under the rug because it was not great. Yeah, and I read some more Wonder Woman. So I read a lot of comics during the trip. Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't want to ramble forever. This video is super long, so I guess if anyone has any more questions, you know, hit me up. But, I call it there.